Breakfast Television tomorrow to publicize the release of a collection of vampire stories. I have one story in there. It's called Evolve. It's a collection, and it's basically 24 Canadian vampire writers or horror writers who wrote a vampire story on what the vampire was going to evolve into.
Wow.
Yeah, so my story involves a vampire who decides he's going to run for office. Because I thought that's where you're going to find the real parasites and leeches.
Exactly.
In the political arena.
Yep. Well, that's fantastic. I can't wait for you to do that. This is a good primer for you then for tomorrow morning. I'm glad that we had a chance to talk.
Good warm-up, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, for all of our listeners out in wonderful, dreamy radio land here in this paranormal sphere of ours, how do they get a copy of any one of the myriad of books in your prolific arsenal?
Well, if you're listening to us from the Maritimes, and I presume a lot of people are, go to any local bookstore. Chapters, Coles, The Bookmark, Carrefour down at Historic Properties, they all carry my books.
Excellent. And do you have a website online that they can order from?
Yes, I do have a website. It has one of those weird, funky domain names, sort of, so I'm not going to read it to you, but I always tell people just Google Steve Vernon.
It's pretty much the first one that comes up, folks out there.
Steve Vernon, author, storyteller. I'm usually right at the top.
That's right. Mr. Steve Vernon, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show today because you do a great service to Nova Scotia in collecting these historical records and spooky records at that, bone-chilling, tingling stories of history and in the traditional fashion of storytelling. So I want to thank you for being here on the Unified Field. This is Atlantic Canada's only paranormal radio broadcast, Mr. Vernon, so we really appreciate you being here today.
It's been a pleasure. I look forward to hearing the interview. You take care.
You too. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Bye-bye. That was Mr. Steve Vernon, a successful local author. His new book is a children's book entitled Maritime Monsters, a field guide. Pick up your copy today, and in these tough economic times, if you can't grab one there, go grab one from the local library. There's one right down here in Spring Garden Road. There's several copies throughout the city, or you can grab any one of his books from virtually everywhere and anywhere. So what'd you think? What a great guy, huh? Steve Vernon, I want to thank you again for joining us on the Unified Field. You're fantastic, and you're welcome here anytime you want. Well, there it is, folks, a Steve Vernon interview. All right, let's take a quick station identification break and get right back on top of the Journey for the Truth right here on the Unified Field with your host, Mr. Justin Brown, on Atlantic Canada's only paranormal radio broadcast.
You are listening to the Unified Field with your host, Mr. Justin Brown.
I'm David Suzuki. Catch the bus. Just one bus means 40 fewer vehicles on the road and 9 tons of pollution out of the air. Not bad for a couple of bucks. The future is in your hands.
Get around smarter at davidsuzuki.org.
The presidential election in Ghana has been narrowly won by the opposition candidate John Atta Mills. Ghana's electoral commission says...
Sick of corporate news? Would rather hear from people in your community and communities across Canada? Tune out the static and tune into Groundwire, 30 minutes of grassroots news produced by independent, on-the-ground journalists and campus community radio stations from coast to coast to coast. Released the first Monday of every month. To listen, contribute, or learn more, visit groundwire.ncra.ca. This is a project of the National Campus and Community Radio Association. Made by you, for you.
The state of the world economy is likely to be a dominant issue in 2009.
Sick of the mainstream? Listen to the alternative. Groundwire.
We are listening to Uncle Justin's UFO spooky show. Why is it going so crazy?
He really loves this show. Welcome back to the Unified Field, folks, where we just heard Steve Vernon's interview and a little wacky introduction from my amazingly creative and fantastic nephew, Colby Brown. And also in that clip, you may recognize his voice as the illustrious companion and assistant here on the Unified Field, Mr. Phoenix Wolf, my son. He's always a great help. So, hey Phoenix, hey Colby, hope you're enjoying the show. You should be in bed if you're listening. So get to bed. Download it from YouTube or MySpace. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with shameless plugs. Tell all your friends' parents. Anyway, yeah, so here we go. Without further ado, let's jump right into the Exopolitical Pulse. All right, let's jump right into it. Newfoundland UFOs, still a mystery. This was posted by CBC News, May 28th, 2010. Residents of Harbour Mill, Newfoundland, reported seeing 3 missile-like UFOs flying near their community on the night of January 25th, 2010, including a photographed image shown there in the article, which you can't see obviously, but if you go to CBC News or cbc.ca, you can find the link there, or in my show notes there from the blog spot, or maybe I'll have it in the MySpace too. Anyway, have a look, because it's a great photograph. The unidentified flying objects spotted in January off Newfoundland remain a mystery to the government, despite extensive scrutiny, according to Department of National Defense documents obtained by CBC News. The documents contain grainy images of a rocket with a long, fiery tail soaring skyward. The reports rule out missiles and model rockets, but don't suggest what the images might show. Military experts discredit the possibility of ballistic and cruise missiles. DND's Directorate of Scientific and Technical Intelligence assessed the images and reported, quote, "The object is not a ballistic missile, not a cruise missile in boost phase, nor a cruise missile in flight phase. It is also not a licensed model rocket launcher." The January 25th sighting happened on the southern coast of Newfoundland near Harbour Mill. Several residents reported seeing the objects, including a woman who was able to photograph one of them. She reported to the RCMP that she had seen 3 missiles soaring over the ocean, and it looked as if they had come up out of the water. Wow. If you have any information on this story, any more information, or other investigative tips to pass on, email investigations@cbc.ca and they'll follow up on this. This is fantastic. The DSTI says in the documents that the only missiles that can be launched from a submarine are ballistic or cruise missiles, but the country's top arms experts say the objects photographed don't fit that profile. There are no distinguishing features on the object to use for identification. The shape of the flame is atypical of a missile launch, and the length of the flame is greater than that of the rocket body. This eliminates the possibility that it is a cruise missile jet engine exhaust, said DSTI. Now, here's kind of like a sub-article to this. The title is Undetected by NORAD. The documents also note that it is the responsibility of the North American Aerospace Defense Command, or NORAD, to provide aerospace warning and defense for North America, and that neither that agency nor Canada Command had any information on the rockets. NORAD and Canada Command have no evidence to support this sighting, reads the report. The RCMP conducted an investigation, but according to the January 28th report, the police didn't have an answer either. The RCMP is calling the event an unexplained sighting. The documents also say that there were no Navy ships involved,